If you hate Donald Trump, this video may irritate you. If you worship him, it may irritate you too, because we are going to examine 5 Trump policies that critics called reckless, cruel, or economically illiterate, and ask an uncomfortable question: did some of them work better than Americans were told? This is not the claim that Trump was right about everything. A policy can reach its stated goal and still impose a serious price. It can be effective without being wise in every respect. So do not ask whether you like Trump. Ask whether the result happened and whether it was worth the cost. For every policy, we will show the intended result, the strongest evidence that it worked, and the strongest objection. No slogans, no automatic credit for every good statistic, and no pretending a measurable result disappears because the politician responsible is unpopular. Number 5. The 2017 tax reform. When Trump signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in December 2017, critics called it a corporate giveaway. They had a point. The law favored corporations and higher income households, and projected growth recovered only part of the lost revenue. But the law also addressed a real competitive problem. Before the reform, the combined federal and average state corporate tax rate was about 38.9%. far above the average of America's major competitors. The law reduced the federal corporate rate from 35 to 21%, bringing the combined rate down to roughly 25.8%. For individuals, it lowered several rates, nearly doubled the standard deduction, and increased the child tax credit. Congressional Research Service data shows the effective corporate rate falling from 23.4% in 2017 to 12.1% in 2018. Individual income taxes as a share of personal income fell more modestly, from 9.6 to 9.2%. The promised economic explosion did not clearly appear. Later Congressional Research Service reviews found that the available studies, taken together, did not demonstrate a large economy-wide effect. The law did not pay for itself. The defensible success is narrower. Trump moved the United States toward a more competitive corporate rate and delivered a real tax reduction. Whether that justified the fiscal cost is where the argument begins. Number 4. The tariffs. Economists often describe tariffs as taxes on imports ultimately paid at home. On Trump's first-term tariffs, the government's own evidence largely agrees. The United States International Trade Commission found that American importers bore nearly the full cost. But that is not the end of the story. From 2018 through 2021, the Section 232 tariffs reduced imports of affected steel products by 24% and increased American steel production by 1.9%. Aluminum imports fell by 31%, while domestic aluminum production increased by 3.6%. Across sectors covered by the China-focused Section 301 tariffs, imports from China fell by 13%, and the value of American production rose by 0.4%. The shift was much larger in some sectors, including semiconductors. The price was real. Domestic prices increased, and production in heavily affected downstream industries fell by an average of 0.6%. The Commission warned that its study was not an economy-wide verdict. Tariffs were not free money from China. Americans paid much of the bill, but they were not empty theater either. If the objective was to reduce targeted imports and protect production in strategic industries, they produced that result. The unresolved question is whether the additional domestic capacity was worth the higher prices elsewhere. Trump's second term pushed this strategy much further. Tariffs on Chinese goods briefly reached 145%, provoking retaliation and a violent market reaction. But the pressure eventually produced a new framework. According to the administration, China agreed to address restrictions on critical minerals, approve purchases of 200 Boeing aircraft, and buy at least $17 billion of American agricultural products per year. Washington and Beijing also created new boards of trade and investment. That is real leverage, but not a clean victory. The Supreme Court later ruled that the emergency law Trump used did not authorize those sweeping tariffs. New York Federal Reserve researchers estimated that nearly 90% of the economic burden fell on American firms and consumers. Trump extracted concessions, but Americans paid heavily for the pressures that produced them. Number 3. Operation Warp Speed. In May 2020, the Trump administration launched Operation Warp Speed. Its central innovation was not a new vaccine formula, it was a new way of organizing risk. The government funded multiple candidates, purchased doses before approval, and manufactured while trials were underway. By the end of 2020, at least $16.3 billion had been obligated. The Food and Drug Administration authorized the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine on December 11th and Moderna's on December 18th, less than 1 year after the viral genome was published. Trump did not invent messenger RNA science. Decades of research, trial volunteers, regulators, manufacturers, and healthcare professionals made the result possible. Initial distribution missed federal targets, and Trump's rhetoric repeatedly undermined trust. Those failures matter, but the operational achievement remains. The administration accepted financial risk that private companies could not absorb alone and built a system that moved successful vaccines from laboratory work to mass production at unprecedented speed. Even many Trump critics continued to rely on the machine his administration created. Number 2. NATO burden sharing. American presidents complained about NATO burden sharing long before Trump. After Russia seized Crimea in 2014, the alliance agreed that members below 2% of gross domestic product would move toward that benchmark. Progress began, but many governments still treated the target as optional. Trump changed the political cost of ignoring it. His language was abrasive. His public doubts about collective defense alarmed allies and may have weakened deterrence that belongs in the negative ledger. But the spending shift is undeniable. In 2014, only 3 NATO members met the 2% benchmark. By 2025, NATO reported that every ally was at or above it. Collective defense spending by European allies and Canada increased from about 1.4% of their combined gross domestic product in 2014 to an estimated 2.3% in 2025. At The Hague Summit in June 2025, the alliance adopted an even larger commitment, 5% by 2035, divided between 3.5% for core defense and 1.5% for wider security investment. Trump cannot take sole credit. The trend began earlier, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine was the decisive security shock. Russia supplied the danger. Trump supplied political pressure. NATO now spends far more on defense than before he entered politics. Number 1. The border crackdown. No Trump policy creates a sharper moral divide than immigration. Critics see cruelty, damaged asylum protections, mass detention, and the use of military power against desperate people. Supporters see a basic function of government that Washington refused to perform. But on the narrow question of whether enforcement reduced unlawful crossings, the evidence is dramatic. Border Patrol recorded roughly 1.53 million apprehensions at the southwest border in fiscal year 2024. In fiscal year 2025, the number fell to 237,565. That was the lowest annual total since 1970 and a decline of about 84.5%. The decline did not begin on Inauguration Day. Crossings had already fallen sharply during the second half of 2024, after the Biden administration restricted asylum processing and Mexico increased enforcement. Any honest account must include that, but the fall accelerated after Trump returned to office. Border Patrol recorded only 7,181 southwest border apprehensions in March 2025 and 6,072 in June. The administration ended the CBP-1 appointment system, expanded detention and removal, deployed military personnel, and communicated that unlawful entry was far less likely to result in release. An apprehension count is not a complete measure. It does not tell us whether asylum claims received fair consideration, whether enforcement respected due process, or what happened to people diverted into more dangerous routes. But it does answer one question. Deterrence was not imaginary. Policy and expectations changed, and unauthorized crossings collapsed. Trump's methods can be challenged. The measurable result cannot simply be wished away. These cases expose the problem with political scorekeeping. Tax cuts can increase competitiveness and did. Tariffs can protect steel production and raise prices. A border crackdown can reduce crossings and restrict asylum. So, which result counts as success? Was additional American steel capacity worth higher costs for manufacturers? Was a more competitive tax rate worth the lost revenue? And does an 84% border decline justify the methods used to achieve it? That is the argument. Put your answer in the comments, but use evidence, not slogans. In the next video, we will examine 5 Trump policies whose costs were greater than their defenders admit. Same president, same standard, a very different ledger.